Most people think that the path to wealth is very simple: earn more money. But the one thing they don't teach you is that earning more money is never going to make you wealthy, regardless of how large that salary is. And the reason for this is because it depends on how that money's made. There's two forms of income. One is active income. So this is you working for it. This is your job, your salary, your commissions. If you don't show up, your money doesn't show up either. So if you stop working, the income stops as well. So let's say you go on holiday, income stops. You're sick, no income. If you get fired, it stops instantly. Whereas passive income, this is when your money's working for you as opposed to you working for it. So market growth, dividends, interest, rental yields, these all work for you regardless of what happens. So whether you're on holiday, you're off sick, you're still going to have this income. And that's the big difference. Active income gives you security, whereas passive income gives you freedom. It gives you freedom, but it isn't guaranteed. So let's understand this again. Your salary provides you with security, not wealth. It's designed to cover your bills, to provide you with a good form of living, but it isn't provided to build you wealth. And that's why people that are earning $200, $300, $5,000 a year, they're still stressed because they are the single point of failure. If they stop working or something happens to them, that income stops as well. Which is why if you're not building up wealth from this income, you're never actually getting to the final stage, which is letting your money work for you. And this can be quite stressful because if your employer decides that they don't want you, that income's gone. Whereas with investments, this provides you with freedom, but it doesn't provide you with guarantee. And the reason for this is because investments go up and down. It depends what you invest into, of course, but the trick here is just making sure that you can make this shift within your mindset that this is the only real way to achieve financial freedom. So the real definition of wealth is not how much you earn, it's how much you earn without having to work. Because if you're earning $500,000 after tax, but you're saving nothing, then your real net worth is zero. Whereas if you're earning $100,000 after tax, but you've already accumulated $500,000 in wealth, then you're already halfway, or at least some step towards achieving financial freedom. And the real benefit actually comes later on from compound interest, because getting to your first $100,000 is way harder than getting to 200,000. And that's because when you have money, you have compound interest applied on top of that money that you've got. If you make 10% on $100,000, for example, you're making $10,000 in gains. If you're making it on $1 million, you're making 100,000. If you're making it on 10,000, you're only making 1,000. So you can see the more money you've got, the larger this impact's going to be. Because in theory, every single euro, dollar, pound that you invest becomes like an employee. And this employee works 24/7. It's always going to be generating some sort of income. Of course, with the risk attached to it, where it can go up and down. And over the years, this compound interest becomes much more important than a raise, than a commission, than a change in job, because this is where you're getting the true value of increase in wealth. If I look at my own personal situation, for example, I have a salary paid from my own company. I've got the value of my company, but I'm not generating an income from the value of that company. I also have my investments, and my investments can in theory generate me with more income. So I say to myself, right, this is how much money I need, this is how much money I can put away, and this is how much money I'm growing per annum based on the assets that I have invested. So if I want, for example, $100,000 of income per year, but I'm also generating, for example, $100,000 from investment growth, it doesn't mean I've got $200,000 in income that year, because the amount that I take from that has to be a sustainable amount. And this is where it differs per each individual with how much income that they can take. But the real form of freedom comes from understanding these numbers directly yourself. So what we do is we go through a scenario-based planning, where we look at your current situation, we look at where you want to be, we look at what the average annualized growth is of all of the assets of where you invest, because there is a big difference with where this money goes to work for you. If you're sticking it in a bank versus sticking it in bonds versus sticking it in real estate versus sticking it in stocks, all of these are going to provide you with a different income and different growth rates and different volatility. Some could provide you with way more risk than others, which needs to be factored in. If you invested all your money today and there was a massive recession, we need to look at different scenarios of how that's going to impact your future growth. But without looking in these scenarios, your money's never really going to get to work for you. You need to look at inflation, you need to look at the impact that debasement of currency has, and you need to make sure that over the long run you are above this. Because if not, then your money's actually working backwards. So the single most important question you have to ask yourself is, if I stop working tomorrow, how long would my income last for? Would it be a month, 2 months, 1 year, 5 years, for the rest of my life? Because if it is for the rest of your life, then your salary becomes optional. Because you work just because you want to work, not because you have to. And that is the real definition of financial freedom.